Hello, you're watching Gravitas. I'm Shreya Upadhyay. Let's begin. On Gravitas tonight, our big focus is the Pakistan-Afghanistan conflict. Despite a ceasefire which was announced by Donald Trump, the Afghans accuse the Pakistani army of killing civilians. We decode for you the latest on this. Here in India, it's a massive victory for the security agencies. Long-time most wanted Salem Dola has now been extradited to Delhi from Istanbul. We get you details of the coordinated global operation. And amid AI-generated content, singer Taylor Swift has now moved to trademark her voice, pointing to rising concerns of the times we live in. Even as the West Asia war hangs in balance, fighting has broken out on another front. After almost a month-long lull in the attacks, Afghanistan has accused Pakistan of launching mortar and rocket attacks on its soil. As per the Afghan government, 7 civilians have been killed and 85 others, including women and children, were injured as Pakistan reportedly targeted civilian infrastructure in the border province of Kunar. Even the UN's mission in Afghanistan confirmed that tens of civilians were killed or injured in these strikes. The Syed Jamaluddin Afghani University in Asadabad also came under attack. Visuals showed hills near this university shrouded in thick smoke. The Taliban spokesperson Hamidullah Fitrat described the Pakistani attack as a war crime and a blatant act of brutality. In fact, he's even shared images of children who were injured. Multiple homes in Kunar bore the brunt of Pakistan's aggression. Debris was seen all around and multiple people were hospitalized.
This afternoon, around 2, drones came and attacked this village. There were several attacks. Mainly this house was hit. 4 people were wounded here. My uncle's wife is among them. Another was my sister-in-law, and the others were my niece and nephew.
Now, this attack evoked angry reactions from the locals who made their displeasure with the Pakistani government amply clear.
My request to the international community and the government is to resolve their issues with these people, Pakistan, because our lives are completely facing destruction. How long must we continue to suffer like this? We have become extremely fed up with this cowardly and corrupt government.
Now, subsequently, Afghanistan's foreign ministry summoned Pakistan's acting envoy in Kabul to lodge a formal protest regarding these attacks. It condemned the violation of Afghanistan's airspace and rejected Pakistan's claim that violence originated from its soil. In fact, it even stressed that Afghanistan reserved the right to defend its territory and its people. While both sides agreed to a ceasefire in October last year, remember this truce ended in February after Pakistan conducted airstrikes on alleged Tehreek-e-Taliban camps in Afghanistan's Nangarhar and Paktika provinces. However, Taliban said that 18 civilians were killed in this attack. In fact, subsequently, Afghan forces fired at Pakistani military posts and claimed to have killed 55 soldiers. Islamabad responded by bombing Kabul and Kandahar. Then in March, Taliban accused Pakistan of bombing Kabul's Omar Addiction Treatment Hospital, resulting in the death of at least 400 people. While the fighting temporarily paused during Eid, Pakistan once again resumed its operations. However, the situation changed as China entered this fray. Both sides commenced peace talks at the start of April, and they held week-long discussions in Urmoi. On the other hand, Pakistan has denied striking Afghanistan and dubbed it as fake news. Its information ministry stressed that its targeting is precise and intelligence-based, and it claimed that it has attacked only terror infrastructure across the border so far. A day earlier, it had accused Afghan forces of injuring 3 civilians in South Waziristan. Now, this raises a key question. If Pakistan indeed claims to strike precise terror targets, why is it turning a blind eye towards terrorists and related infrastructure that is flourishing on its own soil? For instance, recent Indian intelligence reports suggest that more than 800 terrorists are currently stationed at nearly 72 launch pads across the line of control in Pakistan. This is a significant increase as compared to last year, where 100 to 120 terrorists were detected. These reports also flag the role of banned terror groups, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. It's been learned that 12 launch pads are in Sialkot and Zafarwal, whereas the remaining ones are in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and other interior regions of Pakistan's Punjab province. Pakistan's role in terrorism came to the fore earlier this year as well, when UNSC sanctions monitoring team report linked the Jaish-e-Mohammed to the 2025 Delhi Red Fort blast that had, remember, claimed the lives of 15 people. It had also hinted that Pakistan claimed the Masood Azhar-led terror group to be defunct, even as its women wing was being formed. And this is not all. A recent report prepared by the U.S. Congressional Research Service identified Pakistan as a base of operations for at least 15 terrorist groups. It also specifically nailed the role of Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen, Harkat-ul-Jihad Islami and Harkat-ul-Mujahideen in carrying out terror attacks across India. It highlighted how numerous US and UN designated terrorist groups continue to operate on Pakistani soil with impunity. As Pakistan's doublespeak on terror continues, it remains to be seen whether Afghanistan will retaliate to its latest attempt at reigniting this war. The war in Lebanon is spreading further. Israel has now taken its military campaign into the eastern Lebanon as a fragile ceasefire struggles to hold. Even as the battlefield expands, a new threat is now emerging, one that is exposing serious vulnerabilities in the Israeli Defense Forces. Israeli forces have launched fresh strikes in Lebanon's eastern Bekaa Valley, marking the first attack on this region since the US-brokered ceasefire came into effect on the 16th of April. Both sides continue to exchange fire, and the situation along the Israel-Lebanon border remains volatile and increasingly unpredictable. Visuals from South Lebanon show thick plumes of smoke rising after fresh Israeli strikes. These were captured from the Israeli side of the border. The visuals underscore just how active this conflict still remains. Lebanese officials report that at least 4 people have been killed in the latest round of the Israeli attacks. Now, the Israeli army has also released a footage claiming to show its troops targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Israeli tanks and military vehicles are now heavily deployed along the border, signaling preparations for a prolonged conflict. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims that Hezbollah has been significantly weakened, reduced to just 10% of its original missile capacity. Netanyahu has also said that the operation is far from over, warning that the threat still persists. And in his words, work is not done in Lebanon. That's what he said. Now, on both sides of the border, civilians are losing faith in diplomatic efforts. Many believe that the ceasefire is little more than a temporary pause in a much larger war.
I feel like we were told that this time it would be until the end, that they would eliminate Hezbollah and give us security in the north, but I don't see that happening.
When will relief come so we can get out of this life sentence? No one knows. It's like a door is locked on us, and we can't get out, we can't talk, we can't do anything.
A new dimension is emerging in this conflict as well, Hezbollah's use of first-person view drones. Now, these small but deadly devices are targeting Israeli tanks and soldiers with increasing precision. Some of these drones use fiber-optic guidance systems, reportedly making them nearly impossible to jam and leaving Israeli forces exposed. The IDF have reported dozens of injuries from drone attacks in recent weeks, and a recent strike marked the first fatal drone attack on Israeli troops. At the same time, the IDF has been facing increasing scrutiny as well, after global outrage ensued over 2 IDF soldiers vandalizing a Jesus statue in South Lebanon. The IDF chief has now condemned the allegations of the Israeli soldiers stealing personal property in Lebanon, also adding that a probe is underway. So as this war intensifies, the ceasefire appears to be on name only. Moving on, the United Arab Emirates has announced its exit from OPEC and the broader OPEC Plus alliance. This development is hugely significant for crude oil markets as it marks a complete shift in global energy politics. This move will be effective from the 1st of May, and remember, it comes amid heightened volatility in global crude markets. The UAE's departure from the Oil Producers Alliance has added a layer of uncertainty and weakened the ability of the producer alliances to coordinate supply and prices. Before its exit, the UAE was the 3rd largest producer within OPEC, pumping around 3.4 million barrels per day and accounting for roughly 10% of the group's output. Its departure further erodes OPEC Plus cohesion, which has already been strained by a sharp drop in production linked to the ongoing conflict. In the near term, the move is expected to keep price volatility elevated as markets react to both geopolitical risks and shifting supply dynamics. However, over the longer term, the UAE's strategy could exert downward pressure on prices. Freed from production quotas, Abu Dhabi plans to ramp up capacity to 5 million barrels per day by 2027, potentially adding significant new supply to global markets. The exit also reflects a deeper geopolitical and economic recalibration. The fragmentation over regional security responses and a growing emphasis on national economic priorities have pushed the UAE to adopt a more independent energy policy. The move also signals a potential reshaping of global oil markets with implications for pricing, supply coordination, and the future relevance of traditional producer alliances. UAE's move comes as Gulf leadership is in Saudi capital Jeddah for an exceptional meeting of the Gulf Cooperation Council to discuss the response to the Iranian strikes. This is the first in-person meeting of the GCC countries since the war against Iran 2 months back. India has secured a big win in the fight against international drug syndicates as Salim Dola, who is one of the most wanted figures linked to the underworld, has been extradited to Delhi from Istanbul. India got hold of Dola following a coordinated global operation. We get you the detailed report on that particular operation. Take a look.
A major success for India's anti-narcotics agencies. Salim Dola, one of India's most wanted drug lords, has been extradited. Dawood's close aide has been brought back to India after a highly coordinated international operation involving multiple agencies across countries. Dola's arrest and extradition is a major blow to the D Company's overseas drug syndicate. which he allegedly managed while operating from abroad. Born in Mumbai's Baikala area, Dola rose through the ranks of the underworld and became a close associate of Chota Shakil, a key aide of Dawood Ibrahim. He began with small-scale smuggling of tobacco before moving into marijuana trafficking, eventually expanding into high-value synthetic drugs like mephedrone and fentanyl. Dola was first arrested back in 2012 with a large consignment of marijuana, but was later acquitted. Then in 2018, he was arrested again in Mumbai in a fentanyl case, but secured bail, after which he fled the country. From the UAE, Dola is believed to have rebuilt his operations, using front businesses and a network of associates to run a multi-nation drug empire. But his run came to an end on April 25th, when he was tracked down to a hideout in Istanbul's Beylikdüzü district. He was arrested in a high-stakes joint operation by Turkish police and intelligence agencies. Wanted under a red notice issued by Interpol, Salim Dola had been on the radar of multiple agencies for his role in international drug trafficking. Following his arrest, he was swiftly deported to India, where he is now in the custody of the Narcotics Control Bureau and is expected to be interrogated by multiple agencies. Investigators say Dola was running a massive transnational drug empire estimated to be worth over rupees 5,000 crore, with operations spanning India, the UAE and Turkey. The network allegedly included clandestine drug labs, complex supply chains and money laundering operations routed through legitimate-looking businesses. Reacting to the drug kingpin's arrest, Union Home Minister Amit Shah hailed the operation, reiterating the government's zero-tolerance policy against drug cartels. In a statement, he said that India's anti-narcotics agencies are now capable of tracking down and bringing back fugitives from anywhere in the world, sending a strong message to global drug kingpins. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Washington is facing mounting questions over the true state of its military readiness. A combination of ongoing global conflicts, high missile usage in Iran, and strained production lines are raising concerns over a possible depletion of its missile stockpiles. According to a report by The Atlantic, American Vice President J.D. Vance has privately expressed concerns over the state of American munitions reserves and has repeatedly questioned the Pentagon's assessment of the ongoing war in Iran. Reports claim that Vance has even queried whether the information being provided to President Trump about the reality on the ground is reaching him. Now, the central concern being raised is not just about current operations, but also about long-term global commitments. If U.S. stockpiles continue to decline, America would be forced to prioritize defense needs in critical regions such as Taiwan against China, South Korea against the North, and Europe against Russia. Meanwhile, senior defense officials, including the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the General Dan Kane, who's the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, have publicly asserted that U.S. stockpiles remain robust and capable. However, multiple reports paint a more pressured picture. Let's tell you about it. A major analysis by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, or the CSIS, paints a striking picture of the scale of the expenditure. Since the war began in late February, the U.S. has used up at least half of its THAAD missiles, nearly half of its Patriot air defense systems, and around 45% of its precision strike missiles. The numbers are just as significant across other systems. Around 30% of Tomahawk missiles have been deployed, along with substantial use of joint air-to-surface standoff missiles, and roughly 20% of SM-3 and SM-6 interceptors. Internal political tensions are also surfacing against this backdrop. Remember, reports suggest that differences have emerged within the American leadership as well over how the war in Iran is being described, how much stockpile data is accurate, and whether the strategy being pursued is sustainable for the future. Now, the Iran war is beginning to create political ripple effects back home in Washington as well for Donald Trump. Trump is now grappling with a war narrative that is beyond his control as his polling numbers drop even lower, with Americans' approval for this war plunging. He has no choice apart from finding a scapegoat. And nobody looks more suitable than Pete Hegseth. Signs of this shift were visible as early as the 4th of March, when Trump threw a live grenade at Hegseth when he was asked about the U.S. war objectives in Iran. Trump publicly pointed to Pete Hegseth's role in pushing for aggressive action in West Asia. Listen in.
They've been poisoning the American people, and Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves.
I think you were the first one to speak up, and you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
Now, the Pentagon is also exploring structural fixes for its long-term production bottlenecks. Reports say that the U.S. Defense Department is considering a whopping $1.85 billion feasibility study to explore outsourcing or co-production of warship designs with allies such as South Korea and Japan. The study, which is part of the 2027 budget plan, would assess whether advanced foreign designs like Japan's Mogami class and South Korea's Daewoo class frigates could help supplement overstretched shipbuilding capacity of Washington. If approved, this would mark the first time since World War II that the U.S. may depend on foreign designs for major surface warships. The move comes as America reportedly continues to struggle with labor shortage and cost overruns in its domestic shipbuilding industry. The initiative also aims to bridge a widening shipbuilding capacity gap with China, which is reportedly producing 6 to 10 destroyers per year, which is 4 to 6 times the rate of the United States. Together, these developments highlight a major pressure point for Washington, where military overstretch, industrial limitation, and political accountability are all converging at the same time. Has Washington finally abandoned the idea of a regime change in Iran? Well, that is one of the major reasons to launch a war against Iran on the 28th of February, as it failed to trigger any internal uprising. Instead of weakening the leadership, it has clearly hardened public support inside Iran. We say this because in an interview, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that any regime change in Iran, in his words, is something that has to happen from within. A statement that stands in sharp contrast to American President Donald Trump, who's repeatedly claimed that regime change has already happened.
But we've had regime change, if you look already, because the one regime was decimated, destroyed, they're all dead. The next regime is mostly dead. And the third regime, we're dealing with different people than anybody's dealt with before. It's a whole different group of people. So I would consider that regime change.
Despite Trump's claims, is Rubio's statements about regime change in sync with the events on the ground that tell an entirely different story? Because thousands of Iranians continue to demonstrate in support of the Iranian leadership. In fact, even during the height of the war, thousands of Iranians had taken to the streets not against their government, but in support of it, even under the threat of bombings. Did the change in tone from Rubio also come due to Iran's continued control over the Strait of Hormuz? which is a critical global energy route, something that has not only impacted global energy, but America's position in global diplomacy. Well, Marco Rubio's own comments appear to allude to this exact thing. Listen in.
Look what they've done with the Straits. Great example. The Straits is basically the equivalent of an economic nuclear weapon that they're trying to use against the world. And they're bragging about it. They're putting up billboards in Tehran bragging about how they can hold 25% or 20% of the world's energy hostage. Imagine if those same people had access to a nuclear weapon. They would hold the whole region hostage.
Iran has sent a new proposal now on ending this war, while at the same time diplomatic moves are gaining momentum as well. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has made 3 visits to Pakistan so far in just the last 48 hours, presenting a proposal aimed at breaking the deadlock. As per reports, Iran has offered to halt attacks on shipping in the Hormuz, but only if the U.S. ends this war, lifts its naval blockade and delays nuclear talks. These are the conditions that Iran has given. The White House has confirmed that Trump and his team are reviewing the offer. However, reports in American media claim that there is discontent in Washington regarding Iranian proposal, dampening hopes of an immediate breakthrough. And just a short while back, in a post on his social media account, Donald Trump has claimed that Iran wants the U.S. to open the Hormuz. In fact, in his words, let me quote him, as they try to figure out their leadership situation. Remember, Rubio has also said that Iran's stance on the Strait of Hormuz did not meet American demands and that Trump will decide on the future course of action. The White House is reportedly likely to offer its response and counter-proposals in the coming days. So as things stand right now, the United States appears to have reset its war goals, even if it was a forced realization that regime change in Iran was never really a viable option. With that, let's tell you what is coming up on Gravitas on the other side. United States has arrested a Chinese hacker for carrying out cyber attacks to steal COVID-19 related research. We get you all about it. And the Musk versus Altman saga is now underway in the court. The trial has begun and all eyes are now who would end up controlling the AI market. Let's talk about food security fears, which are on a rise due to the continued blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. The UN World Food Programme and the International Monetary Fund have warned that surging fertilizer costs driven by the Iran crisis threaten to push an additional 45 million people into acute hunger. The international bodies project that if the West Asia disruptions continue through to the mid of this year, the crisis could bring total global hunger to a record of over 360 million. The Hormuz disruptions have led to shipping and manufacturing delays, and as a result, fertilizer costs have skyrocketed, with urea prices increasing by about 46% in March from pre-war levels. About 1/3 of global fertilizer materials pass through the Strait of Hormuz that has potentially threatened agricultural output globally. The key waterway has seen a critical choke, disrupting supplies to Africa and Asia. The World Food Programme warns that 45 million more people could face food insecurity, bringing the total number of hungry to record levels. Countries in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia that rely heavily on imports are at the highest risk in all of this. The crisis is heavily linked to disruptions in the energy markets. High natural gas prices, which is a primary feedstock for nitrogen fertilizer, and higher transportation costs have added to this crisis. The IMF has called for immediate global cooperation, including smarter policies and targeted support to mitigate the impact on the most vulnerable populations. In fact, IMF's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, said that the world needs to work together on food shortages, especially since the economic growth is already shaky, even if peace efforts succeed. The countries at the highest risk of acute hunger and famine are predominantly driven by conflict. Nearly two-thirds of the global population facing high acute food insecurity is concentrated in just 10 countries. That list includes, as you can see, Nigeria, Sudan, South Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Gaza, Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Myanmar. These are the regions that are now at the highest risk of acute hunger. Separately, a 2026 survey indicates most American farmers are struggling to afford necessary fertilizer, leading to severe financial strain for about 70% of the farmers. U.S. farmers are now seeking bailouts following a historic fertilizer price shock driven by supply disruptions and higher fuel costs. Farm bankruptcies had jumped 46% last year due to the soaring input costs. The Trump administration gave a $12 billion aid package to farmers in December last year. And now, U.S. farmers are seeking additional aid specifically to cover for surging fertilizer costs. Moving on, India's relationship with gold is more than just an investment. It is embedded in Indian culture. Now, as the Reserve Bank of India reportedly explores fresh schemes to incentivize the deposit of personal gold, the focus now shifts to a staggering reality. Indian households sit on a sleeping giant of capital. According to the World Gold Council, Indian households and religious institutions hold an estimated 25 to 27,000 tons of gold. At current market valuations, this private hoard is worth over $2 trillion, making it one of the largest untapped pools of private wealth globally. Historically, only a fraction of this has ever entered the formal banking system. The RBI has attempted to monetize this gold before, most notably through the gold monetization scheme that was launched in 2015. While the scheme aimed to reduce India's reliance on imports, it saw lukewarm participation initially due to emotional attachment to jewelry, concerns over the melting process, and tax scrutiny fears. Bringing even 10% of this idle gold into the market could be a game changer for the Indian economy. It could lead to a massive reduction in the $30 to $40 billion annual gold import bill. It could increase domestic gold supply as well and lower the need for foreign exchange outflow. Banks can use gold deposits as a productive asset for backlending. For the average citizen, the RBI's proposed scheme transforms frozen lockers into interest-bearing accounts. If the new framework addresses the trust gap regarding jewelry purity and provides competitive interest rates, India could finally turn its cultural obsession into a powerful macroeconomic engine. Well, shifting our focus now to Iraq, where Ali al-Zaidi has been nominated as Iraq's new Prime Minister designate. The country's newly elected president, Nizar Ahmadi, has asked al-Zaidi to form the new government, marking a dramatic political shift after weeks of deadlock. Earlier, the powerful Shia alliance, also known as the Coordination Framework, named al-Zaidi as its nominee for the post of the Prime Minister. He now has 30 days to form a government. A difficult task in Iraq's complex and often delayed political system.
In accordance with the Iraqi constitution, I charge you, as the nominee of the largest parliamentary blocs, with forming the government. You have 1 month to form this government and present it to the parliament, and be assured that all of us, along with the various political forces, will support your efforts and those of the incoming government, and all authorities will cooperate and stand together for the development of this country. I congratulate you for this mandate, and you are worthy of it and will abide by the constitutional time frame for completing the formation of the government. I wish you success.
The decision comes after Iraqi leaders backed away from supporting former Premier Nouri al-Maliki following pressure from the United States and warnings from President Trump. Al-Maliki is seen as close to Iran. A little known in political circles, Ali al-Zaidi is a 40-year-old multi-millionaire businessman, banker and media owner. He built his career in private banking and investment, and he owns a regional television network as well. In fact, he's also involved with the supply of Iraq's vast government food basket program, which serves millions of people. He's never held public office, making him an outsider in Iraq's political establishment. If he's successful, he would become the youngest prime minister in Iraq's modern history. Since the US-led invasion that toppled Saddam Hussein back in 2003, Iraq has balanced influence between Washington and Tehran, which is a challenge that continues till date. The new prime minister will face mounting pressure to rein in the armed groups aligned with Tehran, many of which Washington considers as terror organizations. Iraq was dragged to the current conflict with strikes targeting both US interests and Tehran-backed groups in the country. The new prime minister will also need to rebuild ties with the Gulf nations and address economic challenges worsened by disruptions in oil exports through the Strait of Hormuz. Our next story is from Mexico. In another big blow to its drug cartel, Mexican special forces arrested drug lord Odias Flores Silva, also known as El Jardinero. This has brought the focus back on Mexico's Jalisco New Generation cartel. We get you all the details in this next report. Take a look.
He was a close ally and potential successor of drug kingpin El Mencho. He is a powerful commander of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Odias Flores Silva, also known as El Jardinero, finally met his downfall after being arrested by the Mexican Special Forces. This is a big blow for Mexico's most feared criminal network, as he is believed to control vast swathes of territory along the country's Pacific coast. US designated him as a significant foreign narcotics trafficker and offered a reward of $5 million for his capture. His arrest was rather dramatic. The operation involved over 500 troops, 6 helicopters and several planes. It was conducted after 19 months of surveillance. Forces surrounded a cabin in El Mirador, where El Jardinero was protected by 30 pickup trucks and over 60 gunmen. He was captured without a single shot fired as he tried to hide in a drainage ditch. Intelligence given by US reportedly proved vital in his arrest. This was seen as another triumph for Mexico's Security Minister Omar Garcia Harfuch, who blamed El Mencho for an assassination attempt in 2020 that left 2 of his bodyguards dead. Back then, a truck full of heavily armed gunmen intercepted and attacked his vehicle, leaving him injured. Following his arrest, Mexican Navy personnel transferred El Jardinero from the western state of Nayarit to Mexico City via an aircraft. This has brought back focus on Jalisco New Generation cartel. Formerly a regional band of smugglers, it grew into a global criminal empire under the leadership of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho. It operated in over 50 countries and dominated the fentanyl and methamphetamine trade. El Mencho evaded capture for nearly 2 decades and outlasted his rivals like El Chapo and Esmael Garcia. But he was killed in a military operation in February this year. As the news of El Mencho's death spread, violence spread across nearly a dozen states of Mexico. Roads were blocked. Vehicles were set ablaze. At least 73 people, including security personnel and suspected cartel members, lost their lives. Mexico's crackdown on drug cartels comes amid increasing pressure from US President Donald Trump to dismantle these networks. While it is not clear if El Jardinero will face charges in Mexico, US is seeking his extradition. In 2020, he was indicted by a US court on charges of distributing 5 or more kilograms of cocaine, 1 or more kilograms of heroin in America, and possessing a firearm in relation to a drug offense. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, with that, let's shift our focus to America now, where a man accused of carrying out cyber attacks on behalf of the Chinese government has been extradited to the U.S., where he faces more than a decade in prison if he's convicted. American authorities allege that Xu Zhivai worked as a contract hacker for China's Ministry of State Security. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, Xu was involved in a series of cyber attacks targeting American institutions. Prosecutors say that he and the alleged co-conspirator Zhang Yu targeted several American universities in early 2020 in an attempt to steal research related to the COVID-19 pandemic. The duo is also accused of hacking thousands of email servers running Microsoft Exchange from March 2021. The attacks were described as indiscriminate, and they have been linked to a Chinese-backed hacking group known as Hafnium, later associated with the name Silk Typhoon. Last year, Xu was arrested near Milan and held in an Italian prison until his recent extradition. He's now in detention in Houston, Texas. As per a report by TechCrunch, during a court hearing, Xu's U.S. lawyer, Dan Kajgel, said that he has pleaded not guilty to all charges. Court records show that he has made his initial appearance in federal court and has been remanded in custody. Prosecutors allege that Xu worked for a company called Shanghai Power Rock Network, which they claim conducted hacking operations on behalf of China. The company has been accused of exploiting security flaws in Microsoft Exchange servers to target a range of American organizations, including defense contractors, law firms, think tanks, and infectious disease researchers. Officials say many other suspected hackers linked to similar operations remain at large. All right, let's turn our focus now to the big legal battle that has been going on in the AI industry. Jury selection has concluded in the high-profile legal battle between Elon Musk and Sam Altman, with 9 jurors chosen from across California's Bay Area. The dispute, remember, centers on claims that OpenAI shifted from a non-profit model to a for-profit structure. Musk has sued OpenAI, its CEO Sam Altman and co-founder Greg Brockman in 2024, alleging that the company breached its original promise to operate for the benefit of humanity. Elon Musk, who co-founded OpenAI in 2015, left the organization in 2018, and he later launched the rival AI firm xAI. Sam Altman and Brockman were both present in court for the jury selection, where their legal team argued that Musk is acting out of regret after leaving the company. Bill Savitt, an attorney for OpenAI, said that it was a very good day in court. Take a listen.
I think the best thing that can be said is that the jurors come to the jury room from all walks of life and with all different perspectives, and the process of questioning and seating them yields a group of people who are going to do what they're supposed to do, which is put any preconceptions aside and judge the case on the facts.
Now, Musk did not attend the proceedings, but he posted a series of critical remarks on his platform X, accusing the defendants of betraying OpenAI's original mission and referring to them as Scam Altman and Greg Stockman. At the heart of this case is OpenAI's shift to a for-profit structure in 2025, a move that Musk claims violates its founding principles. If he succeeds, Elon Musk is seeking to force OpenAI to return to a non-profit model. In fact, he's also called for the removal of Sam Altman as the director and as an officer of the company's for-profit entity, as well as the stripping of his equity stake. Musk is also seeking similar action against Greg Brockman, who currently serves as the president of OpenAI. All right, shifting our focus now, the heat isn't just on land anymore. A silent, dangerous crisis is unfolding beneath the waves as well. The Indian Ocean is heating up, and the Arabian Sea is now the epicenter of what scientists are calling an underwater heat emergency. Our next report gets you all the details.
Beneath serene waves, a silent crisis is brewing.
The ocean is heating up. It is now turning into a victim of relentless warming. The ocean temperatures are surging past dangerous thresholds across vast stretches of the Indian Ocean. These marine heat waves are pulsing through the Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and neighboring basins. They threaten to reshape underwater ecosystem for years. At the heart of the crisis is the Arabian Sea. Latest data shows large parts of it are under watch, alert, and even warning zones, with temperatures rising beyond normal thresholds. The heat stretches along India's western shores from Gujarat's arid coast southward through Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka to Kerala. The heat is spreading, pushing fragile ecosystems to the brink. Nearly 19 to 22% of the Bay of Bengal is feeling the heat as well. The strongest signals are concentrated near the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The consequences are devastating. India's Ocean Monitoring Agency says the underwater spikes could bleach coral reefs, scramble fish populations, slash ocean productivity, and threaten food security for millions who rely on these waters. But prolonged marine heat waves don't stay underwater. They can disrupt tuna migration routes in the southern Indian Ocean, vital for food security across island nations and coastal nations. Along India's shores, the warming raises the odds of mass coral stress, fishery shifts, and reduced ocean productivity. Scientists warn this is no one-off event. As climate change accelerates, these marine heat waves are becoming more frequent, more intense, and longer lasting. The ocean has long absorbed the planet's excess heat, but now it is reaching a breaking point. The warming waters are a wake-up call. A crisis we cannot see, but one we can no longer ignore. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, has landed himself in a fresh controversy over singer Kid Rock taking an Army Apache helicopter ride with him in Washington, D.C. on Monday. This comes weeks after the military came under fire for flying helicopters near the singer's house in Tennessee. Posting photographs on social media of himself and Kid Rock at the base in Virginia, Hegseth wrote, and I quote, "Kid Rock is a patriot and huge supporter of our troops." He's also posted a photograph of Kid Rock speaking with a small group of service members in Pentagon's press briefing room. This controversy has drawn strong responses from the Democrats. California Governor Gavin Newsom took to social media to criticize the flights. His office posted, quote, "Why are taxpayers paying to fly Kid Rock around on $100 million helicopters?" In fact, echoing the same sentiment, Democratic Representative Jason Crow of Colorado, who's a former Army Ranger as well, claimed that taxpayers' money is being spent to give Kid Rock what he called joyrides on Apache helicopters. Now, amid the blowback, the Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell has said that the flights supported a community relations event for a White House-led initiative called Freedom 250. That is coordinating events for America's 250th anniversary commemoration. The statement also added that Robert Kid Rock Ritchie participated in multiple troop touches with service members and filmed videos for Memorial Day, America's 250th birthday, and for his Freedom 250 tour. In early March, remember, a pair of similar attack helicopters flew near Kid Rock's estate in Nashville area and over the No Kings protest that took place in the city that very day. The Army opened a probe into these flights conducted by the crew from the 101st Airborne Division that is stationed at Fort Campbell and suspended those service members. Pete Hegseth then intervened to terminate the probe and reinstate those service members. All right, moving on now. Let's ask you a question. Can bees actually count? Well, it may sound unbelievable, but a new study is now challenging this very debate, and the result may surprise you. Our next report tells you more about it. Take a look.
Bees have long intrigued scientists with their sharp brains. But experts have argued for years, are bees really counting or just spotting patterns? Now, researchers have taken a completely new approach to this issue. Instead of testing bees based on human assumptions, they asked a simple question: how do bees actually see the world? And using this benchmark, a team of researchers from Australia, Italy, and France reanalyzed their own earlier experiments from a bee's point of view, and the outcome was different. Earlier tests trained bees to link symbols with quantities, and during training, bees achieved over 75% success rate. Even in tougher tests, their accuracy stayed well above 60%. But researchers claimed bees were simply choosing images that looked more complex or busy, and their new analysis challenges their own original research, stating that when visuals are adjusted to match a bee's eyesight, which is far less detailed than humans, bees respond to the total number of objects, not just how they appear. And their new findings showed that bees can count numbers up to 6, as well as understand the concepts of 0, with the help of their own unique sensory and perceptual abilities. The research published in the peer-reviewed Proceedings of the Royal Society, B, Biological Sciences, highlights that to understand animal intelligence, scientists must stop seeing the world only through human eyes.
Human folklore has often claimed that stolen food tastes better, and now a new study has revealed just that. This adage, which resonates across several cultures, holds true. This has come to the fore in a study that was published by Valentin Skria, which is in the Food Quality and Preference Journal. This researcher, who works in Russian Medical Academy of Continuous Professional Education, set out to investigate whether moral transgression might enhance pleasure. As part of this study, 120 participants were given French fries to eat on 4 separate occasions. The only thing that changed was how they got them. In one case, fries were directly served to the volunteers. The other scenarios involved participants being offered fries by another person, taking them covertly from someone else's portion, and taking them in the presence of a stern-looking stranger. Now, each time, the quality of the fries was rated on a scale of 1 to 9, and the results were pretty clear. The food that was stolen from others was rated as tasting significantly better. For instance, fries stolen with high risk were rated on average about 40% more enjoyable than those which were directly served to the participants. As per the study, guilt was positively associated with enjoyment. Now, interestingly, how the fries were obtained altered the perceptions of saltiness and crispiness as well. This obviously reinforces the notion that scarcity or the appearance of it can actually make things more desirable. While the study has its own limitations, as there was no real risk of punishment, it also serves as a reminder that small acts of transgression can actually be thrilling. All right, shifting our focus now, UK's King Charles III is in the United States for a high-profile visit aimed at reinforcing the relationship between the two countries. This visit comes at a time when the US-UK relations are strained over the Iran war. The King and the Queen were welcomed by President Trump and the First Lady at Washington, where they received a ceremonial welcome. Take a look at the key moments from the White House. And on that royal note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. Bye-bye. Good night.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires,